Hey everyone, welcome back to the Elemental Evan Show. I have one of my favorite reoccurring guests on today with us. She is just a wealth of knowledge. It's always a pleasure for me to connect with her and also to just be a student and take some notes because that is what's going to happen during today's episode. Is she's going to fill you with so much knowledge. So get your notebooks ready. Welcome to the show, founder of Energybits, Catharine Arnston. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you, Evan. I love being a frequent flyer on your show.
Yeah, you're up there.
Class. I always fly first class with you.
Hey, whatever I can offer in any way, I'll try to be the, what is it, like Emirates Airlines for you here.
Right.
But yeah, no, it is truly, all jokes aside, such a pleasure to have you on. And we're going to talk about my favorite, I always say, quote unquote, supplement, because obviously it is a whole food that we're going to talk about today. But being that I have had you on before, I think I wanted to kind of go in a little bit of a different direction to touch on some subjects we might not have touched in the beginning. But for those of you who are just tuning in, please correct me if I'm wrong, Catharine. But what we're talking about today is microalgae as opposed to macroalgae, which in the past, Catharine has explained, macroalgae would be like seaweed, the bigger type of, like sea plant life that we would have, whereas microalgae is smaller stuff. So that's going to be spirulina and chlorella.
Microscopic. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. So that is what we're talking about today is the microalgae. But I think one of the most important things regarding microalgae and specifically spirulina and chlorella is something that you refer to, and I've referred to this in the past, but I didn't have such a beautiful, eloquent name for it. But that is what you've termed the great nutrient collapse. And I'm not sure if that's actually your term, but I mean, that's where I've first seen it. So I'm going to credit that to you right now.
Well, I can't take credit for that. That was an article. The scientists have referenced it. So I was just relaying that. So I wish I could take credit for it, but it is correct. Yeah, we are in an unprecedented period. It's not just the environmental, poor Earth, we're heating her up to crazy temperatures, but we have a complete nutritional collapse that's predicated on our soils being depleted of all minerals. And when they're depleted, the plants are depleted and we're depleted. So, but yeah, that's what's going on right now. It's pretty sad.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's something, and please add in anything if I miss something. But from my understanding, this great nutrient collapse. So, for example, if you took a apple from 100 years ago, it's going to have a higher level of nutrient density, basically. And a lot of that is going to be due to mainly like farming practices, like, depleted topsoils, monocropping, overusage of chemicals on our plants. These are things that are kind of contributing to this. Is this correct,
Yeah.
Catharine?
Well, it's a couple of things. Yes, it is all the soil monocropping of the soil, which has depleted all the minerals, is certainly the most egregious thing that's happened in our farming ecosystem. Number two, now so many of our vegetables are grown in foreign countries. So they're harvested before they are ripe, and then so the nutrients can't get to the fruit or the leaves. So by the time they spend a lot of time in warehouses, so by the time they get to your dinner table, there's a lot of fiber and not a lot of nutrition left. The other thing is the ozone layer has been depleted, and what they're finding, the effect of that is the nutrient level and the protein level of the plants is dropping, and the sugar and carb levels are increasing. So, you add that to the fact that also most of the food people are eating these days is so processed. And when they add things back in there, it's not the natural nutrients that Mother Nature has intelligently provided to us. They're extracts. And when you put in, if you buy a box of something that says fortified with iron, for example, please leave it on the shelf, because especially iron, man, that stuff's bad news for our bodies and for our mitochondria. And two, when you put an extract into anything, your body doesn't recognize it like it does the nutrition that is in there naturally. So you can get into excessive overload. It doesn't get absorbed, so it's either one or the other. You get too much or too little. So and you mentioned the apple. On top of all that, there's the genetic modifications that have been going on, and all the farmers are breeding, using hybrid fruits and vegetables to be sweeter, to accommodate to the taste buds of the North American and other countries, but particularly North America. They want sweetness and sugar. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, sugar has no redeeming feature, whether it's refined. You have to really even be careful with your fruits, and especially if you're ketogenic or you're low carb. An insulin spike comes from sugar, whatever format you get it from. So, and if you still need to eat fruit, berries are your best bet because they, like strawberries or raspberries, they have the least amount of sugar. But those insulin spikes are going to come, and when you get insulin spikes, you get inflammation, and the inflammation causes damage to the mitochondria, and ultimately damaged mitochondria, as we'll talk about today, is where the rubber hits the road. I tell people I never eat alone. I eat with my mitochondria. They're always with me. And they're always with you, and if once you understand what they need and they're on your side, by the way, you guys are on the same team. We're all on the same team, but it's like asking your baseball team to go play a game and put blindfolds on them. If you don't give your mitochondria what they need to perform, they can't, and they take a hit. Or they die, and then your baseball team will be throwing the wrong shot, the ball to the wrong team, and scoring for somebody else. And so you don't want that to happen. When your mitochondria are damaged, they send the wrong signals. Everything comes to mitochondria health, and fortunately, people are starting to learn about that. So yeah, the whole food supply, your mitochondria can't perform properly if you aren't giving them the fuel that they need, and they don't have arms and legs to choose the food. That's your job.
Yeah, no. So mitochondria is definitely going to be a massive topic of today's episode. But really quickly, coming back to the great nutrient collapse. So the reason spirulina and chlorella are so incredible for literally what you were just saying is, for one, coming back to the sugar, there's zero sugar, but on top of that, we have 40 plus minerals and vitamins in spirulina and chlorella. Is that correct?
That's right. And in fact, we also have a quote from NASA that says 1 gram of algae has the same nutrition equal to 1,000 grams of vegetables, 1 to 1,000. And and we sell our algae in large bags of 1,000 tablets. And I used that quote to do a calculation, and I found out that each bag of our algae tablets has the same nutrition as 551 pounds of vegetables. So, they're $130, but we have a discount code we'll share, so it works out to like a $100-ish per bag. But if you bought 551 pounds of vegetables, that would have cost you $1,500. Yeah. So, and 10 tablets a day is sort of what we suggest to people. You could have less, but even better, take more. But that works out to about $1 a day. If you don't think you and your body and your health and your longevity and your skin and your digestion and your sleep and your mitochondria aren't worth $1 a day, man, you got to work on self-image, self-love, because you are worth it. And there is nothing in the universe with more nutrition than spirulina and chlorella. Even the United Nations 49 years ago declared spirulina algae the answer to world hunger because it has 3 times the amount of protein as steak on a weight basis. And it's the most eco-friendly, sustainable crop in the world. It is the most concentrated food, the most eco-friendly, sustainable food, and we sell it in tiny tablets that you can swallow or chew. So it's the most effortless food in the world. You don't have to drag this home from the grocery store. You don't have to clean it. You don't have to cook it. You don't even have to chew it. Of course, I chew mine, but they're little tablets about the size of a baby aspirin. The spirulina is the blue-green algae, and it has nutrients in it not found in any other food in the world. We're going to talk about that and why they're good for the mitochondria. And then chlorella is a green algae, has the highest chlorophyll in the world. But honestly, you could eat them, chew them, swallow them, put them in a smoothie. Just get them into you, because you're not getting the nutrition that you need from our food supply, period. And who wants to spend the rest of the entire day cooking? I mean, we all have jobs, we have families, we have other responsibilities. So and the tablets travel well. They're not affected by heat. Well, not, like they are when you grow them. If you use high heat, you kill many of the nutrients, including the enzymes and the pigments that we're going to talk about that are very healing, which makes our brand so unique because we don't use high heat. So you get the full deal when you use ours. But nonetheless, honestly, and I'm 13 years into this. Algae is the answer for everything. And I know it sounds crazy. You think, oh, that woman, she's making this stuff up. I don't believe her. But I don't say anything. I don't have the PubMed articles to reference. I tell people the only reason you don't know about algae and its benefits is that it's not grown here and no one's told you about it. 99% of it's grown in Asia and 99% of it's consumed there. And it's a multi-billion-dollar agricultural crop. We've talked about this before. Spirulina and Chlorella are harvested as food crops. Not there. There is algae in the ocean, but Spirulina and Chlorella are grown in freshwater farms, and then we just air dry it. But hey, why should the Asians be the only ones benefiting from this superfood, super amazing nutrient density? And the Japanese are well regarded for their longevity, their low obesity rates, their low cancer rates, and they don't leave their house without taking chlorella algae every day. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, it's almost too. I came up with this saying about the benefits of algae. Too simple to believe, too powerful not to. Pretty much says it all, right?
100%. Yeah. So actually, going back to the price on this, I actually just include Energybits into my grocery bill almost, because that's what I consider it, is groceries. It's a food, and
Absolutely.
yeah, and like you said, it is absolutely cost efficient, even at 10 of them a day. That, like you said, it's $1 a day. It is my number one supplement, quote unquote supplement that I take, because it does cover such a wide array of nutrient deficiencies. I was actually, I did a podcast recently on major deficiencies in the US, and Spirulina and Chlorella had practically every single one of them. I was looking at the chlorophyll content of chlorella, which obviously chlorella basically has chlorophyll in the name.
World.
Yep.
Yeah, 25 times more chlorophyll than liquid chlorophyll. So figure that out.
It's insane. I was looking compared to, I think it was a cup of spinach. You could get the same amount of chlorophyll that's in a cup of spinach in, I think it was 5 tablets of the Energybits. So
probably even less. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Probably 1 tablet.
Jeez. I mean, it's insane. It's so nutrient dense, and just you really get your bang for your buck. And so for me personally, I don't even consider it in my supplement expenditure. I consider it in my grocery expenditure. So yeah.
We had an email from a woman a couple months ago. She's 87, and before she found us, she was incontinent. She couldn't sleep for longer than an hour at a time because as you get older, your melatonin drops. She had no energy, so she started taking both of them. And she said within a couple of weeks, or even or a week, I can't remember what the email was, her incontinence was gone. She was able to sleep 5 or 6 hours at a time. Her energy went through the roof. She now does CrossFit. Check this out, an 87-year-old woman doing CrossFit. She says her grocery bills, to your point, have dropped. She eats 1 meal a day now because she just has her Energybits in the morning. And in the email, I'll even send it to you because she said we could share it. That particular day, she went for a 3-mile walk. Then she watched her grandson at school play basketball. Then she went to the nursing home to visit her friend, and she cleaned out her garage, and then at 5 o'clock she decided to have something to eat. All of that from 30 tablets of Energybits. So and we also have emails from mothers who are so grateful because they said, dinner time was always very strenuous or painful because they were always fighting with their kids to get them to eat their vegetables, and the kids just didn't want to eat them. So now they give the kids a couple of tablets a day, problem solved, because they're getting all the nutrients, all the chlorophyll, all the phytonutrients to build what they need. And now they're not getting the fiber because actually spirulina has zero fiber because spirulina is a bacteria. It's a cyanobacteria. There is a bit of fiber in the chlorella. And also on your deficiencies, probably B12 might have showed up on your radar. And I want to address that because literally every day we get an email from someone because there's a lot of stuff on the internet about the B12 and spirulina being the pseudo B12, not the real deal. And so I did a deep dive just this morning, and I have some documents, some scientific documents that prove, at least in our algae, which is called the Spirulina plantensis, which is the spirulina, it is the real cobaline B12, which is absorbed by your body, and the chlorella is also the real B12. So I'm not sure where what spirulina and chlorella these other articles are referencing, but they're not correct when it comes to ours. And so I just want to assure people that that we've got the real B12 in our spirulina and chlorella.
Yeah, no, and that's super important. Really good to know that, you know, it's the biologically active or like absorbable type, which it is super important to know that. And this is why I always talk about Energybits, because I'm like, no, this is everything in the way you need it. Just eat it. Now, in terms of the mitochondria, because I'm about to just let you loose on this topic, I know you're gonna provide us with so much information right now. But yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I mean, if you care to, you can give a little brief overview of what the mitochondria is for new listeners, and then also definitely dive in on superoxide dismutase and phycocyanin and what benefit that provides for both brain health and heart health.
Yeah. So I had a little chart.
And I wanted to mention that real quick. For everyone who is listening, please go check this out on YouTube because Catharine brings the best like physical examples and actually presents them on screen here. So if you are listening to this, I highly encourage you, go check this out on YouTube. She's going to have some awesome diagrams. So please check that out.
Well, and you know, I really wish in schools they would teach us how our bodies work, because when something doesn't work well, the first thing people do is they get they're frightened and they go into a freeze mode and grab at anything. That's why so many people take medications. But if you start to understand how your body actually functions, and people never think twice about reading the instructions on how their phone works, their iPhone. So I just want to assure you that what I enjoy doing is helping people understand how their body functions, because once you understand the rules of engagement, it's a lot easier to provide it, and then you'll start to understand why it's working. Because it's not certainly when it comes to algae, it's not it's not phony, it's not smoke and mirrors. It's the real nutritional needs being met by your body, and most particularly your mitochondria. So what are the mitochondria? Well, they're known as being the power cells of your in your cells. They're what generate what's called ATP. ATP is the form of energy required by your body. It takes the food that you eat and converts it into electrons that are then transferred into this thing called ATP, which is what everything in your body requires ATP. Thinking, walking, talking, breathing, your lymphatic system, absolutely everything. And so inside your cell, you have your nucleus, and then you have these little mitochondria that are generating the ATP. Now, the problem arises because the ATP that's being produced inside these mitochondria, a byproduct, are free radicals. And as you probably know, the free radicals are very damaging. And what the issue is, inside the those little organelles, the mitochondria, where the ATP is produced, that's also where your mitochondria have their own DNA. You didn't probably know this, but your mitochondria have their own DNA. And there's only 37 of them compared to the 22,000 regular DNA. But those mitochondria DNA control everything that goes on in the regular mitochondria, in your regular DNA, all your cellular communications. So the problem is, however, the DNA are located exactly where the ATP is produced, which is exactly where the free radicals are being produced. Your regular nucleus DNA is way outside of the mitochondria, so they last your lifetime. Your mitochondria DNA lasts an average of 10 days. And that's because they're constantly being bombarded by free radicals that are being thrown off as a byproduct of the ATP production. And so when that happens, your mitochondria DNA die or they get mutated. And when they're mutated, they send the wrong signals to the cells and to the other nucleus and the other DNA. And when they die, you have less of them, so you have less energy. In both situations, you have diminished ATP, which means you have diminished capability in whatever it is that you want to do. This leads to brain fog. This leads to hormonal issues. This leads to skin issues. This leads to cancer. It leads to everything. So, and just to show you sort of what happens, and I'll get a little geeky on you. I'm showing you in the mitochondria, the way the ATP is produced is there's these little electrons that are embedded in the cell membrane, and they take the electrons that are, your glucose is converted from the food that you eat, and then it's like a relay race. They move these little electrons along the course, and the final stage is to pass it into where the ATP is generated. But the problem is when the free radicals are constantly being released, those little stations, think of it like, as I say, a relay race. When you have a relay race, you have someone passing a baton. Well, when the damage occurs in the mitochondria, the relays or the runners in the race get further and further apart. So it's harder and harder for them to pass the baton. When they're healthy, they're tight and they're working closely, and the electrons get moved along, not very many free radicals, and so that's when you get high ATP production. When there's too many free radicals, those stations get moved apart from one another, so more and more electrons get dropped, and that turns into free radicals. And I'll show you a real picture of a mitochondria. Here's a healthy one, and here's one that's been damaged. See all the empty space? So it's hard for the electrons to get moved from one of those stations to the next. And so it's a slippery slope. It just gets worse and worse. The analogy I make is it's like asking Tom Brady to throw a pass in a stadium that's 6 times the size of a normal stadium. It just doesn't work. So this is why when you start to have damaged mitochondria, it's a downward spiral, and you want to find a way to stop it. So there are 2 ways to reduce the free radicals, which would then therefore reduce your damage to your mitochondria and help you get your health back. Because here's the great thing. Your body, every single cell in your body, every single microorganism in your body is constantly regenerating itself. So whatever situation you find yourself in, it's not stagnant. There's a great quote I like, an Asian quote, that you never step in the same river twice. It's a great visual because the river's always flowing. Your body's the same way. So when you give it better nourishment, when it's generating and making it the next bunch of cells, they're going to be healthier. So whatever situation you do find yourself in, don't despair. On the other hand, if you are healthy, keep it up and keep giving yourself what your body needs, because then you'll continue to have a good structure. So the 2 ways to reduce that free radical damage is 2 ways. You can reduce the free radicals, or you can remove them. Let's look at the first one, which is to reduce them. Well, sugar and refined carbs create the most free radicals. They're the ones that they're dropped the most along that relay station. Keto diets or low-carb diets have fewer carbs, and the best is fasting, intermittent fasting, or algae. There's virtually no free radicals generated from intermittent fasting and algae. So very, very efficient. But even if you just start by having fewer carbs, you will start having fewer free radicals, and that means you'll have less mitochondrial damage. When I see someone with a lot of wrinkles, I can almost promise you they eat a lot of sugar, because you get free radical damage in your skin, just like which you can see. But that kind of free radical damage, that's also occurring inside your body, where you can't see it. But it manifests as heart disease, it manifests as hormonal issues, brain fog, and we'll talk about the brain in a minute. But the skin, you can certainly see it. And people always comment on my skin, and I attribute it to the fact I eat so much algae, so I don't have any free radical damage in my skin. And it's not Botox, because everything moves.
Nice. Yeah,
So,
yeah. You have to ask nowadays, you know?
yeah, yeah. So reducing free radicals is your number one step to protecting your mitochondria. The second step is to remove them. Okay. Now, normally we would know, oh well, antioxidants, they are great for removing free radicals, but the problem is most of the antioxidants cannot get into the mitochondria, because the mitochondria are your only cell in your body with two membranes. Every other cell, including the mitochondria, have what's called a lipid membrane. And now the mitochondria have a second one that, and I'll explain to you later where it came from, but that second membrane is impenetrable by almost all antioxidants except 4 that I know of. There could be more. Glutathione, melatonin, superoxide dismutase, and chlorophyll. Now, and we'll talk about that in a second, but the reason why they can't get in them is because the mitochondria, the inner membrane, does not have this thing called porins. Porins are little openings that allow proteins and antioxidants in and out of your lipid membrane, but there aren't any in your inner membrane. So the good news is your body creates most of those antioxidants that you need to get into the mitochondria: glutathione, melatonin, and superoxide dismutase. Doesn't make chlorophyll. But the bad news is your body stops making them when you hit 30. So so you've got all, that's why when you're teenage, you're 20, I mean, you can go out and party, you can do whatever you want. You always bounce back because you've got all these, whatever you've been doing in your body, you can bounce back. But once you hit 30, it drops all those critical antioxidants that you've been having all these years are gone. And so your mitochondria are no longer protected. It's like your superpowers are suddenly disappeared, or somebody cleared out your bank account. You don't have what you used to have. And this is exactly the time when disease starts happening, because by the time you hit 40 or 50, you've lost the protection of those antioxidants. And by the way, we haven't talked about this yet, you've been living longer. And we have so many toxins in our world. The average adult I read has 700 toxins in them. So it's a perfect storm. You have more antioxidants, you have more toxins, and you have less protection of your mitochondria. So here's the great news. Algae has the highest concentration of 3 of those antioxidants that can get in there: superoxide dismutase, glutathione, and chlorophyll. And that is particularly spirulina. And chlorella pulls out toxins. So now you can reverse the situation where you were missing these critical antioxidants to protect your mitochondria. Just by taking the algae, you can literally flatline the inflammation levels, get rid of the toxins, and get your mitochondria healing. And I don't make this up, by the way. There are at least 25,000 studies that have documented the healing powers of superoxide dismutase, which is one of the critical nutrients, and it's actually it's an enzyme. It's found in spirulina, but it's also in chlorella. But highest concentration is in spirulina. Everything, as I said, from heart disease, it reduces stops your telomeres from shortening. It removes inflammation, so it's particularly good for brain health. But because, by the way, your brain has the highest concentration of mitochondria in the world, 2 million mitochondria per cell. I mean, think about that. 2 million mitochondria per cell. That's one packed subway car, right? And we'll talk about. I've got some really cool information about that. But there's a book that came out last November by Dr. Chris Palmer, Brain Energy. The whole book is about how all brain issues, whether it's post-traumatic stress disorder or anxiety, is really a mitochondrial disease. And so the first step is to heal your mitochondria, because once they are functioning better, then all these other issues in your brain have a better chance of being corrected. So, and I completely agree. And I read the book, and he's here in Boston. We're going to actually get together next week, I think.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, And all, sorry, real quick, I wanted to jump in real quick. Also, I just wanted to mention that mitochondria, just a really quick reason why they're so important is, like you just said, they're super jam-packed in all the cells of our brain, but that's because it's an area where we have high energy demand, right? And that's why the heart as well has high levels of mitochondria. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in real quick
Yes.
and chime that.
Well, because remember, the mitochondria are responsible for generating energy, cellular energy. And I tell people, look, at cellular energy is like money. When you have more money, you can do more things and you have more choices, right? Cellular energy is exactly the same way. More cellular energy, you can do more things, and you have more choices. So the highest needs in your body have the highest concentration of mitochondria. Your brain uses, by the way, 20% of all your energy needs. And so it's a hog. It's a cellular energy hog. But that's why, one of the reasons why when you take spirulina, you get physical and mental energy immediately, but you also, because it partly is feeding in through this mitochondria, but it satisfies your hunger. By the way, both algae are zero carbs, great for intermittent fasting, ketogenic, vegan, paleo, carnivore, zero oxalates, zero lectins. I feel like I've got a prodigy child on my hands, but yes, so the brain has the most, 2 million per cell. The next highest, which might be sort of interesting to know, are women's eggs. Why is that? Because it takes a lot of energy to generate a human being, to create a human being. And,
I'd say so.
and interesting side note for any of the ladies that are listening, we all know that our regular DNA half of it comes from men, the sperm, and half comes from women from the egg. Well, when it comes to mitochondria, it's all from the ladies. All of your DNA in your mitochondria come from the eggs. So, here we are, the women, we're working in the back rooms again, making things work. But I thought that was pretty fascinating. So after brain, then the eggs, then the heart. The heart's about 8,000 mitochondria per cell. And after that, it's muscles, and then all your other organs. So you can see, even athletes, those of you who are listening, you need to be sure that you're feeding those mitochondria. And there's other ways to do it too. Exercise, obviously, red light therapy, but the spirulina and the chlorella for sure, because they have the nutrients that can get into the inner membrane. And I'll tell you, I can tell you now why the inner membrane exists. So I may have mentioned, or maybe I didn't, that algae was the first life on Earth 4 billion years ago. And it started with the cyanobacteria, which, like spirulina, as I mentioned, is a bacteria. And before cyanobacteria, Earth was gas and water. Nothing lived. And then this single cell anaerobic cell started growing. It released oxygen by generating ATP. And after 1 billion years, there was enough oxygen, so aerobic cells, which were larger, could grow. But they didn't generate ATP as well. So I kind of joke and say, well, I can imagine the conversation. A big cell says to the little cell, hey, little guy, I see you're struggling there. Why don't we join forces? We'll protect you from the oxygen, and you come and make ATP for us. And that's basically what happened. Again, all proven in science. Is called endosymbiotic theory, that the original single cell organism that was absorbed by the larger cell, which was aerobic, it evolved to become mitochondria. So cyanobacteria, like spirulina, became our mitochondria. So the second membrane that's inside the mitochondria that no antioxidants, except everything that's in algae, can get into is a leftover from the original days when it was a single cell organism. And then when it got absorbed, a lipid membrane was put around it, just like all the other cells. And this was discovered in the 60s by a female scientist at MIT, also here in Boston. And it's, if you go on PubMed or research anything about the history of mitochondria, that's referenced. So it makes a lot of sense to me that That's why algae seems to be so perfectly suited for protecting, correcting, and improving the functionality of your mitochondria, because they're basically from the same place. They evolved from the same place. So, so you can't get any further back in history than algae, and you can't get any deeper to the core of what's causing your health or your disease than mitochondria. That's it. You can't go any further than that. So it's fascinating to me. So two of the most powerful nutrients that support the mitochondria are found in spirulina. One is called superoxide dismutase, also known as SOD, and the other one is the blue pigment that's called phycocyanin. And I'm going to spell it for you because you would never really know it otherwise. It's PHYCOCYANIN. And the reason I want to spell it out for you is so that if you're interested, just go online and Google phycocyanin and cancer treatments, because you're going to find out that this is what the chemotherapy companies are using. We'll talk about this in a minute, to kill cancer cells. And yet it exists naturally in spirulina. And by the way, phycocyanin does not exist anywhere else in nature. Nowhere else except spirulina. I would say that killing cancer cells would be a pretty important thing to have on your mind. I might as well just jump right to that one right now. So anyone who's listening, I am not saying, I just want to make sure you understand this, I'm not saying that algae kills cancer cells. I am saying that scientists have done research to find out that a nutrient called phycocyanin has been shown to kill cancer cells, and that algae contains this nutrient, spirulina algae, not chlorella. So I'm going to show you this, and again, if you Google phycocyanin, we'll send you the PowerPoint with the links to this. But this was I'm showing a picture of some cancer cells that were put in a petri dish, and they dyed them purple. And it's a 24-hour time shot, and so they can see that. And what they did with these cancer cells is they put some phycocyanin in the petri dish. And there's 6 images, and it starts here where the cancer is very dense, and it ends here where the cancer is virtually gone. So, and what I point out to people is that the amount of phycocyanin that was used in this experiment to kill the cancer cells, one of our spirulina algae tablets has 4,000 times more phycocyanin, one tablet, than was used in this test. Jeez. Crazy, right? Yeah. Crazy. So in case you are interested, I hope you are, I want to help you understand why it works. So in the electron transport chain, there's all these little molecules where there's like the baton being passed along, as we mentioned, and sometimes it gets dropped on its way to the finish line, which is called ATP production. Now there's 2 what's called carrier molecules. One you may have heard of before called CoQ10. We're not talking about that one. But there's another little carrier molecule. It's called cytochrome C. And it helps shuttle the electrons between the 3rd molecule in the electron transport chain and the 4th molecule. And the analogy I make, it's like, if you're at one of these big airports and you got to get on a shuttle bus to get to your terminal, you miss that shuttle bus, you miss your plane, right? So this little cytochrome C is the shuttle bus. Now, and it works to carry the electrons to its final destination to generate ATP in healthy cells. This is one of the reasons why phycocyanin in spirulina algae helps generate energy, because it speeds up the bus as it moves the electron from station 3 to station 4. That's on healthy cells. On unhealthy cells, which include cancer cells and senescent cells. Senescent cells are basically zombie cells. They've replicated themselves to death, literally, because each time you replicate, you lose some of your telomeres, and eventually end up with a cell that can't replicate anymore. But it just doesn't go away. It's sort of like someone who's worked all their life, and it's time for them to retire, but they just won't go home. They won't leave, and they're still kicking. They're making a mess in the office. that's what a senescent cell is. It's still hanging around. It's inflammatory. It's not doing anything. You want to get rid of it. That's what autophagy does. That's what, when you go to cryotherapy, helps clean out some of that stuff. So this cytochrome C molecule in unhealthy cells, senescent cells, and cancer cells, the phycocyanin kicks it out and it kills the cell. Pretty sweet, right? It's self-directed. And in fact, apparently the chemotherapy companies can determine if their treatments are working in their cancer treatments by, what do? They measure how much cytochrome C is in your body, in your blood. Because if there's a lot of cytochrome C, that tells them there's been a lot of cancer cells killed, so it's working. Unbelievable, right? So, so I think that's pretty powerful. That the phycocyanin, the blue pigment that is found in spirulina, nowhere else has that pretty powerful capability. But I do want you to know, here's a chart, that pigment, like including the next nutrient we're going to talk about, which is superoxide dismutase, blue pigment, phycocyanin, is damaged. You lose 50% or more of its capability when you use high heat. So almost everybody else is using high heat, all the other algae companies, to dry their algae, which means you're shooting blanks. You're not getting the phycocyanin power that you should, and that is intact in ours because we don't use high heat. So that's a very powerful benefit that protects not only the mitochondria, but your healthy cells and gets rid of the unhealthy cells naturally. You know, it's Mother Nature's way of, keeping us healthy. God bless her. I mean, she's got everything up her sleeve. The other nutrient I want to talk about is called superoxide dismutase, and also known as SOD. And what it does, so when you have these free radicals, the most damaging free radical is called superoxide. And so this nutrient called superoxide dismutase, which is actually an enzyme, is the most powerful way to neutralize it. And what does it do? It turns superoxide into harmless water. Ta-da! Your mitochondria, thank you. There's, because now they're like firemen. And they're rescuing you from the fire, because those free radicals, they're like sparks from a fire. Because when your poor old DNA are sitting right there by the fireside, by the bonfire, getting fried. But when you give it the superoxide dismutase, it's like putting up a shield, and actually it's more than a shield. It removes the free radicals and turns them into water. So that's pretty powerful. But you can't get any amount of superoxide dismutase from any other food. I think there's 0.000001% in cabbage or broccoli, but then it gets damaged in digestion. And because spirulina is a bacteria, which allows it to get absorbed instantly because there's no fiber or cellulose wall, it gets absorbed, and all the nutrients, including the superoxide dismutase and the phycocyanin, get directed to the, it's a direct shot, right? It's like the airlines here, right? It's like going into first class, you get to load onto the plane first. So it gets to the mitochondria. And so, the two of them, superoxide dismutase, which protects your mitochondria from free radicals and also protects your telomeres from shortening, because here's that picture where as they replicate, there's less and less telomere, and then your DNA gets exposed and it gets unraveled, and then you get DNA mutation, and that contributes to damage. So pretty powerful stuff. And it's all natural. We don't add it. It's Mother Nature. She cooked it up. We just grow it very carefully. We preserve it without high heat so that you get the maximum benefit, and don't miss out on any of the nutrients. And it works, honestly. I mean, we've had people who've had Alzheimer's who write us and tell us that within 24 hours of starting to take the spirulina, before they couldn't figure out how to work their microwave or couldn't remember their address, they were back on track. Which gets me to the part about the brain health, because I've been reading so much about brain health, and we know our algae has helped people on the spectrum, any kind of, if you've got any kind of attention disorder issue, this is so powerful for the brain. And I've read so many articles, but I thought, you know what? I need to test ours for sure. And we're a small company, so we can't do these big, expensive clinical trials. But the good news is we have been working for the last 6 months with a fabulous nonprofit. They're based in Florida, called the Gray Team, grayteam.org. And their entire purpose for existing is to reduce the suicide rates of military veterans, which is at a heartbreaking 35 to 50% rate. 35 to 50% military veterans are committing suicide.
Jeez.
I mean, that just makes me cry. So they're doing everything they can. They've been working with a lot of the biohacking community, and they thought they would try. They'd met me and our team many times. So we thought we'd do a small experiment. And so we recruited some of their members, their veterans, and these are people that have had brain issues for 20 or 30 years. Some had MS, and all we did was give them a pouch of our spirulina algae tablets. There's 30 tablets in a single pouch for 30 days. We did an EEG brain scan before the test, and we did another one after the 30 days. Now, honestly, we could have probably done the brain scan after a week and found the same results, but it is what it is. And we also had some different devices, a WAVI for a biostrap for measuring heart rate variability and sleep and all that sort of stuff. So before I tell you the results of that test, I'm going to show you a picture. Using EEGs have been, or EEG and brain tests have been used in the athletic community for decades, particularly for contact sports, because football, there's lots of head injuries and concussions. And so they would want to know when the athlete was safe enough to go back into play. So I'm showing you a picture that this is a picture of an EEG of a brain of an athlete before they had a concussion. And so you can see all the bright colors, the red and the yellow, that shows brain activity. Then they would have a concussion where there was a massive inflammation, and the EEG showed colors that were all blue, which indicated no brain activity and massive inflammation. And then once they did another EEG, and the brain once again showed the red and the bright colors, that indicated that the brain was healthy again and the athlete could go back into play. And I show you that because I wanted you to see the EEG before and after for the participants in our study. So here's one participant. The EEG showed what? Blue. And what does the blue show? Massive inflammation. Okay. We did the frontal occipital region as well as the central parietal region. The frontal region is where executive decision making is occurring, but nonetheless, they were both massively blue. After 30 days, there's still a little bit of blue, but very significant return of yellow and red in both the parietal and the occipital, showing that the executive function decision-making had been restored. And all we did, they did nothing else except take 30 of these little spirulina tablets a day. And as I said, we probably could have tested after a week and found the same results. We also measured the heart rate variability. This one individual, their heart rate variability improved from 55 to 80. That's a 50% increase in 30 days. Unheard of. So the organization to call it again is Gray Team, greyteam.org. We are supporting them. We're going to hopefully do a much larger study. We're going to get this written up. Dr. D'Agostino is helping us. Dominique D'Agostino, who's very big in the biohacking and keto world. He's a professor at Southern Florida. He's going to help us write this into a paper so we can present it, because it offers great hope for everyone, not just the veterans, but for everyone. If something so natural, so safe, no spirulina in particular, zero interactions with anything, no medication, safe for any child, any age, teenagers, grandparents, athletes. If you can just improve your mental health by just taking spirulina, like, what do you got to lose? Seriously. And for employers who might be listening, listen, everybody wants to be sharp at work. You want to be sharp at home. You want to be sharp on the playing field as athletes. This is more than a pre-workout. I mean, this is your mental health insurance. It's also your nutritional insurance, but that was pretty powerful to me. And I'll give you one more anecdotal story about the power of spirulina. And I don't have the data. I'm waiting for it to be sent to me. I was at Dave Asprey's. I spoke and we exhibited at his show in Orlando, second year. And one of the companies we work very closely with is BrainTap. They have a device that allows you to listen to music and sounds and beats, and they also have lights that flash. And it's shown that it helps you create new brain pathways, and provides you with more opportunity to get into alpha and the deeper sleep zones. So, anyways, they've known me and we've loved each other, and they said, we want to do a little test with you. So when they test their device, what they do first is they have this way to measure your heart rate variability and all your biomarkers. It takes about 5 minutes. They put electrodes on your wrists or whatever. So they did that for me, and then I went and I had some of my spirulina. I had about a pouch and a half, so like 40-ish tablets, and waited half an hour. And then I came back and they tested me again. And it was the CEO who did the test for me. And he almost fell off his chair because he said they have never seen results like this before. I blew out all of their markers. There were only 2 I wasn't at 100%. And when I did the BrainTap device afterwards, that came back and they measured me again, and I was at 100% in everything. And here's the really cool thing. So I'm 66. I'm almost turning 67. My biological age, after those small number of tablets, well, it's 40-ish, I went from a biological age of 66 to 32. My biomarkers measured me at an age of 32. Now, I think that's hilarious because there's been a huge amount of coverage by this gentleman. I can't remember his name right now, but he's been spending 2 or 3 years getting all of these biohacking devices to reduce his age. I think he's 45. I think he spent $3 million over 3 years, and he has knocked off 5 years off his age. 5 years, $3 million in 3 years. I had the equivalent of $6 worth of algae tablets, waited 30 minutes, and knocked 32 years off my age. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you tell me which one you want to do, right?
Yeah.
Crazy. And I'll get the numbers. They're going to get them for me so I can show them on a chart. And honestly, afterwards, he said, I think we need to acquire you. and I can't take the credit for this other than the fact that I educate people and I make sure that our growing conditions are so pure and safe that we can deliver a healthy product to you that you can give to your children and your grandparents. But Mother Nature is the one who has given this to us. And I am so proud to be her spokesperson because somebody needs to. And think about it again. The United Nations has endorsed spirulina for 49 years as the answer to world hunger. And NASA has endorsed it for 50 years as well. So, dig in, come and visit us at Energybits, or just go online, but be aware there's some misinformation about algae, but we'll provide you with, Evan, some information people can dig in. I have at least 3,000 links to NIH articles that validate the benefits of algae. There are 100,000, so I don't have them all, but I have a good enough number. So it's unbelievable. Like I said at the beginning, I came up with this quote: too simple to believe, too powerful not to. What do you have to lose? Right?
Yeah. No, that's I think the perfect motto for Energybits altogether. So I do have one more question I want to kind of end this whole podcast with. But I also just wanted to do a quick recap because there was so much information in
I
that.
know. Sorry about that.
No, and amazing. Like I hope people go back and listen to this and hopefully are taking notes. But yeah, just basically to cover this, by taking spirulina, chlorella, you are going to be protecting these mitochondria, and the mitochondria are going to be the powerhouses of your cells. It's also going to, reduce biological age. It's going to help you age gracefully, slow down the aging process. It's going to give you more energy, make you feel better, make you perform better. It's going to help with your brain because that's a massive area of mitochondria density, the brain, the eggs, all the stuff that you really need taken care of is essentially going to be taken care of. And that's why, it's there's so much information that sometimes it's hard for me to, when I meet someone, I'm like, hey, like try and explain this and that about spirulina and chlorella. And at the end of it, I'm just like, look, it's going to be like the best thing you can pretty much take for yourself. So that's usually where I end off with it. But one thing...
I came up with a great analogy because we didn't talk about chlorella, which pulls out toxins, but I came up with this a great analogy where think of spirulina like room service, because it gives your body all the nourishment that you need, sort of like you would get from room service at a hotel for your day. It gives you, and for your life. And think of chlorella like housekeeping. It cleans all the junk out of your trunk. It pulls all the toxins out. Spirulina, again, another way to think about it is that it works to build your mitochondria, and chlorella, because of the chlorophyll and other nutrients, builds your immune system. Or another way to think about it, spirulina works on the brain and, downwards, and chlorella works on your gut and up. So they do completely different things, but they're both essential for your health. And once you start taking them, honestly, you never want to stop, and hopefully you won't, but they do replace a lot of other things. So they're not an add-on expense. They really replace a lot of stuff that's probably not good for you anyways. So,
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No. Please, Catherine, anytime you need to interrupt, please just do it. Like your words hold much value to me and are going to provide a lot of value to the listeners. But the last thing I did want to end off with, and I've had a few people ask me this, is in terms of how many tablets to take, which you kind of mentioned on this. And of course, everything that we're mentioning here, we're not medical professionals, so take this with a grain of salt. But at the end of the day, for the average person, I heard you say about 10 tablets would be, like a good general amount. But also, let's say for maybe with kids or even someone with, let's say, dementia or Alzheimer's, or maybe they are going through cancer, would you, recommend a higher amount for that person?
Yes. And again, thank you for reminding me to remind your listeners that we aren't a medical facility. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm just sharing information that I have accumulated over these last 13 years. And I'm trying to help people understand where to start. Because keep in mind, this is not a pill. It is not a supplement. We call them bits because they're bits of food. So just like any kind of food, you kind of have to gauge your own appetite, energy levels, age, health, levels. But so on average, we found that 10 tablets a day, spirulina in the morning, take chlorella before you go to bed, because that's when your body does a detox repair cycle. For children, we suggest 1 or half a tablet for their age. So if they're 10, give them 5 a day. If they're 8, give them 4 a day. They can have as many as you like to give them. I had the 18-month-year-old daughter of a chiropractor, Dr. Wolfson, who's a very big paleo cardiologist. His daughter met me at a show. Mind you, this little girl was like a foot and a half tall. She must have eaten 100 tablets, like in the space of 5 minutes. So finally I said, I think maybe she's had enough. But there's no overload. Honestly, your poop will be green if you eat more, but so for pets, for children, until they're a teenager, just give them half of what their age. For a pet, give them this sort of a child's portion, 5 tablets, 10 tablets. If you have a health condition, whether it's heart disease, cancer, you had cancer, you should be doubling and tripling that for sure. And again, once again, what have you got to lose? When I was at Dave's show, we met the folks from the Hippocrates Health Institute, which is a well-regarded 50-year-old institute in Florida, Palm Springs, Florida, Palm Beach rather. And they're recognized for helping people who are in stage 4 cancer get healthy. And they give them saunas and red light therapy, chlorellas, green juices, sprouts, but they wanted a better source of spirulina, so they're considering ours. So you need, I would say, 30 tablets, 60 tablets until a day of each one until you get a clear diagnosis. And then, take as many as you want after that, but keep taking them. I don't think anyone should ever stop taking these. They are your health insurance. Honestly, they're also your nutritional insurance. So when you do eat, you're just eating for fun or flavor or social reasons. And don't worry about taking more. I don't tell anybody how many I take anymore because people were horrified. I take a lot. But on the other hand, and I do eat real food. And I'm not vegan. I eat, grass-fed beef. I'm very selective about my food choices. I make sure I eat the best. But I try to eat once a day. Sometimes it's twice a day. But so I intermittent fast like everybody else does, or you should, with my algae to keep me through the day. So yeah. So if you did take 10 tablets a day, a bag of the 1,000 tablets would last you 3 months. And by the way, if you are on chemotherapy, the chlorella, which pulls out toxins, including radiation, is really helpful to take the day after your treatment because it will pull the excess chemotherapy out so you're not as sick. We want you to get the benefits of your treatment, so don't take it right away. Take it, as long, at least 12 hours afterwards, 8 or 12 hours. The United Nations used chlorella after Chernobyl for that very reason, to pull out the excess radiations. And same with Fukushima disaster 10 years ago. The entire global supply of chlorella was bought up within 24 hours.
Jeez.
So keep in mind, it's food. What have you got to lose? It's been used safely for 70 years in Asia, endorsed by international agencies. The only difference is that with our brand, we don't use high heat and we grow it very, very carefully so all the nutrients are intact so they can go to work for you. And I can't say the same for other companies, but I can assure you that we sell through doctors and practitioners and we do third-party lab tests. So I'm very bullish on the quality that we provide. But remember, it's Mother Nature who gave it to us. We are part of nature. Any issue you ever have, look to nature. The things that make us healthy are natural. It's sunlight within reason, sleep, movement, nutrition, love, right? Those things, and algae is the most effective, efficient, cost-efficient, time-efficient source of food. Please don't go to your local ocean or lake and scoop up some algae because it'll be full of toxins because algae absorbs whatever's in the water. And so, and in fact, by the way, algae kills all bacteria. That's why algae blooms show up, because there's been toxins in the water and they kill the bacteria and they absorb it. So that's why you don't want it. But it does the same thing in your body. That's why we work with biological dentists. And if you chew it, you get the benefit of killing the bacteria in your mouth, and lots of your bacteria travel through your body because it starts in your mouth. So keep that in mind. Chewing, a lot of people don't like the flavor, but chewing does get it into your system quickly, and it gives you that extra benefit of killing bacteria in your mouth. Especially, chlorella tastes pretty good. Give it a shot, maybe with sea salt, or my favorite's salt and pepper, salt and vinegar, pistachio nuts. But whatever you do, grind it up, swallow it. When you swallow it, there is no repeat. It's not like fish oil. It goes down, it stays down.
Yep. No, absolutely true. Catharine, thank you for being the spokesperson for bringing this information our way. Like you said, I know there's a ton of information on this, but the lag in getting it to the public is very apparent. And so I want to personally thank you for doing that work. Yeah, no, I'm so happy to be able to provide just even a small platform for you to be able to do so. But
thank you.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. And also, before we end off here, everyone, I did want to mention that Catherine's been kind enough to provide a code for us so that for being a listener to the show, you can get, I believe, is it 20% off, Catherine?
Yes, 20%. And the code is elemental, and it works on everything all the time. There's no time limit, so don't panic. You have to, so use it now, use it next week, use it next year, share it with your friends. And we do have bags. We have fun canisters that come with a bag inside it. Once the tablets are gone in the canister, you got it. You refill them with the bag. We have a sample pack. And if you have any concerns, I would encourage you to go to Amazon and buy a $6 single pouch, right? $6, and give it a try. There's 30 tablets in a pouch. So if you took 10 a day, there's 3 days. A pouch could be your meal. By the way, there's 1 calorie per tablet. So it's like a meal in a bag, or 2 meals. And when you are sure you are comfortable with that, this is for you, come back to energybits.com and use the elemental discount code to get your 20% off. But we're not here to push the product. We're quite happy to have you try it out, see if it works for you. And man, it's certainly worked for me.
Yeah, no, by all means, I'm a big believer in that. I don't endorse something that I personally don't use myself and enjoy. And I've tried maybe like 7 or 8 different spirulina companies, and this is by far my favorite. So I'm speaking from personal usage here. But yeah, no, I think that the product, or not even the product, the algae, the Mother Nature algae here speaks for itself.
Yeah.
You try it and
Yeah.
you'll notice the difference. You'll notice the quality.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
Catherine,
thank you.
you're awesome. Please, just
Oh,
like I said, you're
no, you're more awesome. Without you, I can't get the message out. So thank you for everything that you do. We're all in this together. We're trying to turn this big ship around and bring health back, and it shouldn't be so complicated or so hard. So I'm grateful to be part of the solution, not the problem.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely the solution and helping out with it. So, Catherine, I appreciate you so much and for sharing this information. Hopefully, I'm actually not even hopefully. I'm sure I'll have you back on in the future with some new information. When you have more results coming back in,
Yeah.
I'm happy to have you back on. So, Catherine,
Okay.
thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you very much. All right.
Yeah,
Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, and everyone, the motto of the show, it's do everything with good intentions, connect to your elements, and eat your energy bits. Get on them. They're absolutely incredible. So, Catherine, thank you.
Thank you.